Hi, guys. Welcome to the FORVR Founders podcast. I'm your host, Jackie Ina, also co-founder of Forever Mood. This is a new series where we interview founders to learn how they got started, how they navigate through challenges, insight, just whatever tips and tools we could use for success. Because let's be real, we could all use some wisdom. So we're kicking off this series because of Black History Month. We wanted to just get in touch with an honored fellow Black beauty founders. And we're so excited to have one today. Her name is Desiree, the owner of Hyperskin. Can you tell us about Hyperskin?
Hi, everybody. And thanks for having me, Jackie. I'm really excited to be chatting with you. Huge fan for many, many years. Excited to hear your story and to share mine. So a bit about me. I was a lawyer in a past life, but switched gears to launch Hyper because I have always had acne-prone skin, had hyperpigmentation prone skin, and felt like there was a void in the market, especially when it came to skincare products, targeting the needs of people with deeper skin tones. So I launched Hyperskin 3 years ago to do just that, to be a multicultural clinical skincare brand that hyper targets the under-addressed needs of deeper skin tones in the market. We launched with our serum, our dark spot serum, first to speak to hyperpigmentation, and we've just been growing from there.
So wait, first of all, two things stuck out to me. You started 3 years ago. That's amazing. Like, round of applause for that. That's an incredible, incredible feat. And the second thing that stood out to me is I just made the connection. Like, did you come up with the name Hyperskin because of hyperpigmentation? Like, was that sort of like a play on words?
It definitely was. When we launched, it was like a double play, hyperpigmentation. I also would focus on hyper as in products that just work. Like, I wanted that energy because when you have acne prone skin and dark spots, like, you don't want anything that doesn't work. You want to see results. So it was a play on a lot of words, but yes, hyperpigmentation was definitely the underlying thing because, as you know, it's the underlying concern of so many skincare issues, whether it's acne, razor bumps, eczema, like it's always underlying when it comes to our like brown skin tone. So yeah.
Right, because to have melanin means that like the way our body reacts to pain and scarring is to hyper, like, overdo it. So yeah, overproduce. So I kind of actually like that. And to your point, I totally, when it comes to just being a skincare consumer, I'm looking for stuff that works. Like, in the price, don't care, didn't ask. Does it work? Okay, throw it in the bag. And I love the fact that you targeted that because personally to me, I mean, there's products that are like pretty to look at, but if it don't work, then what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, branding, I love branding. That side of building a skincare brand was really exciting to me. Especially as someone that always had like the acne products, the little tubes from the doctor's office, the prescriptions. But yes, it can't all be packaging. Like the product has to do what it's supposed to do.
So true. And Desiree, you're from New York. I know we didn't touch on this earlier. Also did not realize you started in law. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So what would you say, and this is just like me being curious, like what would you say your background being from New York plays into, speaking of marketing, how you communicate with the audience, how you market the brand, how you market the product? Like, how do you merge the two things?
Yeah, so, I jumped over this, but being from New York definitely plays into, I think, that straightforwardness. I think I have that in my personality, and it's in the brands. And it also really made me realize that the brand needed to be. I skipped over the fact that between law and launching Hyper, I had a boutique in New York City, a beauty boutique. We had skincare, hair care, and cosmetics. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with New York, but we were in Harlem. So we had some amazing, like savvy, very international customers that would come into our store on a daily basis. So I knew what like hair products they were using, what makeup products. And what I realized was that with skincare, these like savvy international New York women like running industries were just like pulling it together, like concocting and like using products where they weren't, in the branding, in the marketing, weren't being thought of. And I think like being in New York where people have access to everything and you get that energy, I was just so surprised that like this customer couldn't find skincare. So I do think that the attitude of the brand is very New York, and it was colored by me being a New Yorker and like shocked that like Like I couldn't, I can't get a sandwich at midnight. Like I'm supposed to be able to find everything. So yeah, I think our brand does have that New York element of you should be able to find this and it should work.
I agree. And like I said, I think as a consumer myself, I'm always looking for sort of the same. Nobody wants to feel like they're wasting their money. No. So that's great. It's great that you tackle those things head on, because even though I feel like the conversation of like the skincare industry and beauty in general being like oversaturated, but when you think about it, for women like me, I don't think it's oversaturated. I think there's still so much to be taught and so much to be created. So I love when I see brands and founders that are passionate about filling that niche and that gap, because it is still a gap in an underserved market. So
a huge gap. It is a huge gap. When I'm speaking to my chemist and we're saying, no, we need to think of deeper skin tones, our chemists are like, oh, that's a unique angle. Like there's a flood of skincare brands, but there are not a flood of skincare brands that center deeper skin tones, that center Black and brown folks. And that's that's from the chemist to going into your favorite retailer. We're in Sephora. There aren't a bunch of options jumping out at me when I go into Sephora, for example. So yeah, it's not overwhelming for us. So I'm excited about what's popping up in the space, and for Hyper to be carving out its lane.
And you guys launched Hyper Skin in 200 Sephora stores. Was this something that came first, or did you launch like fully at the same time in Sephora?
No, so we're 3 years old. We did Sephora's Accelerate program in 2020, and then we launched online. And so a year later, so we've just been growing within the Sephora universe. And this fall, we launched in half of their stores, in 250 stores. So it's been a crazy ride. It's been really exciting to see my products on the shelves. I just popped into Sephora today, and I love meeting with the associates, etc. But yeah, it's just been step by step every year, just growing and trying to distribute more and more.
Well, since you have the experience of launching D2C and then going into Sephora afterwards, what are some things that you learned, or were there anything that you were not prepared for?
There's so much. I mean, especially Sephora's its own. And I don't need to tell you, they're their own universe. And I think when you're DTC, you can just focus on what you want to create and what your community wants. And it's this very direct relationship. You have all the information, you're speaking directly to your community. Once you have a retailer in between, it's I hope they say this right. I hope they explain this product correctly. The retailer, they might want to see things from you. And so it's really this partnership that is exciting, but I think that partnership has been the biggest thing to adjust to. The fact that someone might want to see something from us that may not have been top of mind, or they might have numbers to support their view of things. Whereas I have my community and what I know as a Black woman with years of hyperpigmentation, et cetera. So there's always that balance, but I think it's an exciting one, being able to create with this much information and with this sort of connection to the cause and to the community. So I'm excited about it, but it's taken some practice.
Practice indeed. And I think something that you said, I just realized, is that as Black founders, we have a really unique position being in retail brands, because a lot of times the retail brand will take the brand in and kind of incubate and okay, here's what you do. And to an extent, Sephora, a lot of retailers, we do have that same rapport with them, but also as one of the few Black founders in Sephora, we have the opportunity to teach them things that maybe they otherwise wouldn't have known. So I think it's kind of cool. And I think we're kind of at an advantage in a way. And some of the stuff you were telling me kind of reminds me of working in the corporate world, except it's in this case, a mutually beneficial relationship where they can learn things and we can learn things.
Yeah. And I think we're coming in at a time as a skincare brand that's Sorry.
It's okay.
I think we launched at a time as a skincare brand with a multicultural focus, where it was clear that our Sephora, that our retail partner, was looking for someone with our expertise and with our focus. And so, yeah, it is mutually beneficial, and it does feel good to be building with them. And that was really important to us when we were looking for our key partner. It had to be someone that valued our voice and what we brought to the table.
Absolutely. So one thing that also stuck out to me about your background, Desiree, is you were a 15% Pledge finalist.
Yes. This is going to be an exciting week. the 15% Pledge is having their first achievement award. The 15% Pledge is an organization that's focused on having retailers commit to having more Black-owned founders, up to 15%, which matches the amount of Black Americans in the U.S. Represented on their shelves. Sephora took that pledge. So that's exciting. They have an achievement award with a $200,000 grant, and we're one of the top 10 finalists. So I'm very excited. This week is going to be very nerve-wracking. We're definitely, as a brand that's growing, that just launched in Sephora, we are in that phase where we're looking for grants, and we will be kicking off fundraising and doing all of that stuff. And so this is just a really exciting time. So fingers crossed for this week, ending with a win.
Oh, you find out this week. Oh, it's crunch time.
The gala is on Saturday.
Oh my God. Well,
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's exciting. I'm sure being just in the room is an honor enough. So congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the brands, there are 10 finalists. They're all brilliant brands. I mean, it's an exciting time to be a founder. It's an exciting time to be a Black founder. All of the finalists have amazing brands. So you're right. Just being in that company, being in the room is going to be extraordinary. But yes, exciting time.
Oh my God, that's awesome to hear, and I couldn't agree more. So my next question is, as you know, most startups fail, which is another reason, unpopular opinion, why I think most people need to stop trying to start businesses if they don't know what the hell they're doing, or if they're at least not willing to put in the work. But so at any stage of your business, did you ever feel like your business would not work, or you just doubted it, or maybe you took like a different direction to keep things running?
I don't know that I've ever felt like it would fail, but I do think that as a founder, in a social media era, it's so easy to look around and feel like you're not doing enough, you're not accomplishing enough, you don't have enough products out, you haven't raised enough money, your team is not the same size as another team. So for me, we launched and we found our audience and we found our community very early. And so we were profitable and I think many would say successful. But I do think that I have to sometimes literally like turn off everything around me, because you start to determine or define success based on what you're seeing around you. So I think that's been our greatest challenge. We have, like I mentioned, little by little, like grown in retail. We're in Sephora. So every year we've seen growth in that sense. But I'm type A. I have a huge vision for our brands, and social media is very intense in terms of like kind of taking a look out and seeing what you think you should be doing. And so yeah, I think for me, the biggest challenge is not failure, but like just focusing on my own definition of success.
I think that's a really good point. I don't know the answer to this question, but sometimes I wonder, does that need to compare yourself like ever stop? I feel like I hear this type of feedback from brand founders at like literally all levels, like no matter how successful or no matter whatever your brand is doing, I feel like we all like kind of get in our own head sometimes. It's hard not to.
Yeah. And the bar keeps moving. So if you asked me last year, like, what does success mean? I would say finding a partner like Sephora and, launching in store. So now I'm in Sephora and I'm looking at what's happening in store and saying that is the bar. And so I think the bar always moves, and I'm fine if it's a bar I created. I think what I need to always manage is focusing on what other people are doing. But yeah, I think we'll always be sort of looking for more.
Yeah, I actually feel like that speaks to just having balance as a brand founder. And actually, I don't know if you experienced this, Desiree, but I oftentimes have to kind of like turn off the noise that may be like well-meaning advice from like people who follow me, or sometimes just meeting someone in conversation, they may say, oh, well, have you ever thought about doing this? And then sometimes I feel like even though the person is trying to be supportive, it kind of gets in your head like, wait, like, should I be doing that? Or does that not mean I'm successful? Like what you said about like, I'm creating my own bar is so important. And I think that as brand founders, like, do you oftentimes find that like, wait, is this like my personal goal for my brand, or is this like something I see someone else doing or someone else suggested it and now it's like in my head? Like, do you ever struggle with that as well?
I think that is a struggle when it comes. Yeah, I think, for example, what should our team look like? Oh, that person has someone that manages that. Perhaps I need that. So I think you're always like especially when it comes to well-meaning advice. Like you said, you're always considering it. So I always have to step back and like you said, like focus on my own goals. I think as a products brand, there's also always this goal to like launch everything. Like we have very thoughtfully and carefully launched new products. And I know that everything we've put out into the world, our customer wants and needs, and that it works well. And that feels good. But also it's very easy to look to the left and the right at other brands that are succeeding on the shelves and say, well, they have 20 products. We need 20 products. So yeah, it's ongoing. But yes, creating my own bar is really important and doing everything on my own timeline. And that speaks directly to the community that I'm creating for and not just, doing what I'm seeing in beauty in general. So.
Word to that. I respect. So I'm curious to know, did you originally have to raise funds to start the brand? Was it self-started? How did you navigate that? And if you did raise funds, like what motivated you to do that?
So that's interesting. We actually are still self-funded. We launched with my $12,000 tax return. If I had to do it again today, I don't know how I would crunch those numbers to make it happen. Like, I don't know how I did it.
That's
how
actually
a website. I don't know how it happens, but that is how we launched. So very minimal amount of funds. I actually would not recommend this. I'm always reluctant to say it because we were fortunate to, like I mentioned, find our customer base early. And so be able to like reinvest funds and continue to grow. But I don't know how we worked that out. Now at the stage where we are, I am definitely considering fundraising. But I'm doing it on my terms. I'm doing it because now I can see how it would benefit me and not just doing it because like that's what people do to launch a brand. But now I can see how if I do it on my own pay, if I do it self-funded, it will work out one way. And if I do it with funding, we have the opportunity to do X, Y, Z. So now fundraising is very real. It's very much on the table. But I wasn't so much in the beginning. In the beginning, I felt like, especially being DTC, where you're more in control of things, that it wasn't as much of a necessity.
True. And now you're at an advantage because you've already built the brand into what it is today. So it's like, now I got a little more leverage. Like, what can you offer me now?
Definitely, yeah. It's a better position to be fundraising from if that's the path we take, for sure. Because it's the growth opportunity is in your face, and so I'm hoping that's how the investor world sees it. If that's the path that we take.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
So, especially hopefully after the 15%.
Exactly.
I'll send you all the positive vibes that way.
Thank you. I need them. I'm excited for them.
Oh, that's awesome. We need more innovation in skincare, definitely. So I'm excited to see that. So my next question is, do you think our community, on a slightly spicier note, do you think our community expects a certain level of service, product, quality, et cetera, versus like veteran companies or like even bigger conglomerates that have been around much longer than we have? What are your thoughts on that?
You're saying, do we have the same standards for what we're expecting in product and skincare?
From a customer standpoint, like, do you think the standards are higher and the expectations are higher versus brands that have just been around longer? I'm asking this question.
You say spicier, you mean spicier.
It was a little spicy, but this has been like a recent discourse, and I have a bit of an unpopular opinion about it, but I'm curious to know like what your point of view is on it.
So I think in terms of standards, especially when we first launched, without the stamps of approval from Sephora or the Best of Beauty Awards or what have you, I felt that the standard was very harsh for us as a smaller Black-owned brand. I felt like anything that we did wrong was because you're Black-owned. And that drove me crazy. So we launched in 2020, we launched right before a pandemic, inventory issues everywhere. I think we handled them incredibly well as a new small brand and definitely handled communication well. I think that was the only thing we could control. But we still had people like, my package got lost in the mail and that's why I don't support Black-owned businesses. And so I think that there has been this underlying, like, anytime you do something wrong, it's because I have a lower expectation of Black-owned businesses that you've just proved. I'm hearing and seeing less of that, I think, as we sort of get these stamps of approval from other people that, and it's unfortunate because I think it was harder for us in the beginning than it is now. But yeah, I do think that the communities that we want to serve can sometimes, they can push us, support us incredibly. I mean, the support that we get from our community is incomparable, but I do think that when things go wrong, the fact that we're Black owned is it just makes it that much harder. And then I guess on the reverse, it makes it harder for us because we want to prove, like, to that community that, like, we're bringing you excellence, we're bringing you what hasn't been brought before. And so it's this weird back and forth. I'm seeing it less in year 3. I don't know if that's because of Sephora or what have you, or we've just found our core audience and we're just speaking to them and not everyone. I'm not sure what's made it feel a little easier in year 3, but when we first launched, oh my God, it was a really challenging discourse. And one that really, like, hurt, because I'm like, no, I really want to create, like, excellence in terms of product and service and communication, but it was challenging. But I want to hear your unpopular opinion.
So, of course, as a Black-owned co-founder, and not only that, but like someone who does social media for a living, I personally feel like the experiences that Black founders have are not like one-off, because I always hear like a lot of discourse about like, oh, only Black people don't support each other. And it's like, I don't think that's true though. Like, I see every ethnic group like complaining about the exact same things that we do, maybe in different like ways, but like, it's really not just a Black thing. But my really unpopular take about this is I feel like it's easier to take it personally when it comes from your own people. But, and the specific discourse that's taking place this week is that Black people don't support each other. And I cannot disagree with that harder. Mm-hmm. I actually feel like Black people have been shown to be, like, we overcompensate who we support, and we support more than I've seen. And we're more, I also feel like Black customers we're more loyal. Sometimes, even I catch myself doing this, it's harder to get like sucked in that web of like, oh, it's only our own people, just because you take it more personally. But I actually feel like a lot of my Black like customers and followers and supporters have been like super lenient in areas where another community probably would not. So I actually feel like, if I could just like ignore the noise sometimes, this does not make up the majority. This negativity is not the majority. The majority of people really do support our brand. They love FORVR Mood. They have my back. And you just have to just not take the small 1% that's very loud, even if it looks like a viral.
Maybe it's the loudest. Maybe that's what I feel.
Because they're the loudest.
I don't think that it's even a question of whether or not the Black community supports Black-owned brands. I think there is so much enthusiasm and support surrounding Black-owned brands. I know that the reason why we did well in our first years is because people were excited to see a Black founder create something that they wanted on their shelves. And so it's never been a question about support, but I do think maybe the noise rings louder when it's from your community, because it's who you want to please. And so perhaps it just hits in a different place. But there was a lot of noise in the beginning. But either we're just kind of focused on, like you said, not focused on that 1%, or it's just sort of silencing with other, with us advancing in other ways. But the support has been strong and consistent for sure.
That's good. Cheers to that. I love hearing that. But yeah, because I've been seeing all kind of crazy discourses. I'm like, guys, no, let's not get distracted.
In fact, I think this was last week's discourse, but I'm thinking about the Miel acquisition, for example. And I won't say that I agree with any of like the people that were upset in that realm, but I will say that I think that all of the emotions surrounding that come from the fact that there is just an incredible amount of support when it comes to a Black-owned brand thriving. And so people have a deeper connection to those brands that they've supported for years, whether it's coming out, voting in awards like the one that we were talking about, or what have you. So I think the Black community gets more connected to those brands that are thriving because there are a few of us at a certain level. And so I think there is this strong emotional attachment between the community, the customer base, and the brands. And it gets interesting, I think, when big things happen, like Miele's acquisition last week. But yeah, it's based in support though. It's based in something real.
That's a good point, because like I have to remind myself, no one that doesn't care will be this emotional about it. So if they didn't care, they wouldn't be talking about you.
No.
Unless it's just haters, that's a different crap.
I mean, yeah, but most people, like, they're not. Some people were like, oh, well, they don't do this to other brands. Well, there's not that connection
Exactly.
that I've watched you grow. I've, been so excited. I was so happy. I ran to Walmart the day that you launched in my town. Like, there isn't that support and that connection to other brands. And so yeah, it's interesting. It's multifaceted. And I think that's the interesting thing when you're creating and speaking to a specific community. You just have to acknowledge that there are a lot of layers.
I agree. It's so complicated.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to know, Desiree, is what accomplishment are you the most proud of?
Well, I have 2 young children. I have a 3-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl. And I think I'm proud of just pursuing something that I'm very passionate about and having them watch me grow it. Like, it feels really good every day. It feels very messy and very busy, but it feels very good. I mean, I think, I could have been a successful lawyer, but that wasn't where my passion lied. But, pivoting and being a beauty entrepreneur and having my children see that feels really good. And I hope that they appreciate it, But I think it's what I'm most proud of is that dynamic.
That's awesome. I'm sure they're very, very proud of you.
Yeah.
And on that note, since that was my last question, I do technically have one more, but this is rapid fire. So one answers, don't think too long about it. I'm just okay. It's time for some rapid fire. I'm gonna give you a question. Just give me 1-word answers. Don't think too long about it. Just whatever comes right to the top of your mind. Okay?
Okay.
All right. First hire.
Social media.
Ooh, that's a good one. E-commerce.
Shopify.
Period. We love Shopify. Average daily sleep.
6 hours. It's the kids.
Ooh, okay. Favorite entrepreneur.
Oh my God. Oh, I have such a long list. I'm going to say Bobby Brown, and I probably have like 20 people to add to that, but she's an OG in terms of like inclusivity, and I love that.
Best business advice.
So much. Just do it. Like, things need to get done. Get it done. Don't overthink it.
Longest meeting you've ever been in.
Oh gosh. I've been in like just day-long meetings. I was a lawyer in a past life.
Okay, well, cool. Well, this was wonderful getting to know you, Desiree. Where can we find, once again, Hyperskin?
So Hyperskin, you can find on hyperskin.com, and you can find it in Sephora locations across the country.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining our podcast. And I definitely look forward to getting introduced and checking out your brand. Thank you so much again. And I look forward to seeing more from you in the future.
Yay, I love this. Thank you for having me. I can't wait to get Hyper in your hands.
Ooh, thank you. Bye.
Bye.